I don't think I've had a particularly successful corporate career. I don't think so. And there was a stage when I actually wanted to give up.
Mr. Rajeev Dubey,
Chairman of Mahindra Insurance Brokers Ltd,
served the corporate for 5 decades.
past President of National HRD Network and the Employers Federation of India.
I have tried to uphold this principle of standing up for justice, a dedication to Satya, Prem and Seva in the context of a purpose. Heart of Rise. So what is three other Rise pillars? Number 1 says accept no limits. Number 2 says do alternative thinking. And number 3 says above all, ensure that you're driving positive change. Right? Now, the 5 refers to the 5 behaviors that will bring these 3 pillars to life. The first one says using the whole mind. The second one says being a multiplier. The third one says knowing how to manage fear and leverage failure. The fourth one says being mindful, and the fifth one says creating trust.
In 1975, a remarkable journey began with the Tata Administrative Services. In 1996, his journey took an exciting turn as he was appointed Managing Director of Tata Metallics, subsidiary of Tata Steel. 4 years later, in 2000, he stepped as Managing Director of Rallis India Limited, continuing to drive growth and transformation. By 2003, after the remarkable 29 years with the Tata Group, he concluded his tenure, leaving behind a legacy of leadership, innovation and unwavering dedication. In 2004, he joined Mahindra & Mahindra. During his duration, he worked closely with Anand Mahindra to shape Mahindra people and HR practices. He introduced Mahindra Rise concept. In April 2020, he got retired from Mahindra Group as Group President and CEO. At present, he is Chairman of Magic Bus Foundation India, Board Member of Scindia School Gwalior, LBSIM New Delhi, ZIS Ranchi, IIM Business School New Delhi, Member of Council of Global Advisors, Yale School of Management USA, Member of Corporate Advisory Board Strategy, XLRI Jamshedpur, Advisory Board Member of Soil School of Inspired Leadership, Mentoring Board Member at Honorary Directory Journal of Manav Rachna Educational Institutions. He has recently retired from the chairmanship of 3 Mahindra companies, Mahindra First Choice Wheels, Mahindra Insurance Brokers and Mahindra Steel Service Centre, and from the governing body of International Labour Organization ILO, Geneva, where he was also the employees Vice President of the Asia region.
Thank you so much for finding some valuable time for us.
It is my privilege, pleasure and joy, and thank you so much for driving all the way from Manesar to my place.
To have you. So sir, my first question goes,
Yeah.
so when you hear the word people,
Yeah.
what idea of this word comes into your mind?
You know, when I talk of people, the first thing that I think of is here is vast, untapped potential waiting to be unleashed.
So how does human psychology plays a vital role in your organization?
You know, I believe that in any organization, the role of the leadership is to create the conditions where people can be at their best, where you are harnessing the full potential of people and other factors in the ecosystem towards the achievement of the purpose. Now, to do this, in addition to many other things, you need passion. And therefore, psychology, which is so vital for that understanding of what creates passion, what creates engagement, what creates motivation, becomes a very, very important part of doing business. I mean, there are so many other things I could talk about. I mean, ultimately, business is about human beings relating with one another, and psychology is nothing but an understanding of how human beings ultimately behave and think. So, psychology is bang center in trying to understand and do good business.
For the psychology of customers, we could understand through our products are selling, but how could we understand the psychology of the employees? How would you do it?
You know, the same way as you study the psychology of customers, as the same principles and tools could be used to study employees, except that the context in which you are looking at employees may be slightly different than what you're using psychological tools for to study your consumer. But it is so important to understand how people are thinking, what motivates them, what demotivates them, because ultimately we are trying to create the conditions where their full potential is unleashed. So psychology, as I said, is really important when we are talking about innovation, when we are talking about productivity, when we are talking about people working together, all of which are vital ingredients for any organization to create goods, products, services, and to meet the needs of its stakeholders.
So, sir, it was very insightful. So, reflecting back to your journey, throughout your leadership journey in your corporate career. So, sir, any tough challenges you faced, where you felt like it was your rock bottom, it may be something which, came up shining and maybe the best opportunity of your life?
I think I can talk certainly about a time which, when I felt I was at the rock bottom, and which in retrospect turned out to be a turning point in my life. There have been several such, but there's one definitely that I can think of, and that was the time that I left the Tatas and joined the Mahindra. The circumstances which led to my wanting to move away from the Tatas and to join the Mahindras, that was a very difficult period. And it was really a period when I thought at that time that I was at rock bottom. But the amazing thing is that when I was in the so-called rock bottom, I got the strength and I got the motivation and I got the ability to change my perspective of how I was looking at this situation. So I started off by feeling that I was the victim, that I was at the mercy of what others were doing. And this was actually making me feel very despondent and depressed, if you like, without hope. But the minute I could, and this was partly due to the prompting of my father, the minute I could make the transition from feeling like a victim to realizing that I was the cause of what was happening. And then I realized that if I was so powerful as to create such a problem, I could use that same power to create the solutions. And then everything changed. Whatever was looking like a problem started becoming an opportunity. What was a challenge that was insurmountable became the opening of doors and windows to a brighter horizon and to a new life.
What do you look in an organization or a leader before, let's say if it is aligning your personal goals as well as your professional goals?
Yeah, so I must say that right from the beginning of my corporate career, I wanted to be part of an organization that was committed to the development of the nation. It was my dream that one day I could do something to make a dent in the poverty and the suffering and the disease that I was seeing all around me. And that is what led me to the Tatas. And frankly, when I was making a shift, that is what led me to the Mahindra. So the purpose was very important, you see. And ultimately, the articulation, if you look at both Mahindra and Tata, it is about driving positive change in the lives of the stakeholders and the communities in which we operate. And to me, that was vital, because if that wasn't there, then nothing else really would work for me. Of course, having said that, there is a purpose, and then you have strategy, structure, processes, and metrics, and then you have culture, values, beliefs, and finally behavior. And it is this sort of the dance between purpose, this whole sort of subset called strategy, structure, process, and vision comes there. And then this bit about culture and behavior and values, it's the dance between these three that actually produces performance. And all three are really important. But if the purpose is not aligned, then the rest of the pieces of that ecosystem don't fall into place.
So as you talked about the purpose, there was one of the instances in the case study that Indians are second to none in the world. So the Blue Chip Conference, what was it?
So I was not in Mahindra at that time when that first Blue Chip Conference was held. But that was clearly a difficult time in the Mahindra history. And Anand Mahindra was actually trying to co-create with his group of people a common vision, if you like, co-creating the future, trying to figure out how do we get ourselves out of the problem that we are finding ourselves in. And that is what Blue Chip was. And Blue Chip really led them to do the focus on financials in addition to many other things, right? So now you've talked about Indians are second to none. So that was the earlier purpose, and that actually then subsequently had to be revised because India, historically at one time, it was important for the purpose to make people feel that we are not second-rate citizens. But then there was as we progressed over time, India clearly wasn't a second-rate nation, and there were lots of people in the Mahindra group who were not Indians. So to have a purpose that said Indians are second to none started looking a little anachronistic, and so they had to go deeper and then figure out what is the purpose that has always been there, but it needs to be articulated. And then they came up with the current purpose, which is we will challenge conventional thinking and innovatively use all our resources to drive positive change in the lives of our stakeholders and communities across the globe to enable them to rise. So this became the purpose around which the whole group then rallied, and then the case study goes on to just examine the history of this movement called Rise, which was driven by the purpose that I just sort of articulated for you.
So in organization, when you work, so particularly how you identify stress? In our daily life, we always feel stress, a lot of assignments, projects, our exams, our personal growth things, our skills. So what initiatives Mahindra take for the stress management? Or how do you identify that someone is feeling from stress?
Okay, so I think Mahindra very early came to the conclusion that there was stress. Now, stress is of different types. There is one stress which is called a creative stress, right? But beyond a point, the creative stress can become distress. You see, so creative stress is something that sort of is good in the sense that it enables you to be dissatisfied with what is happening and wants to make you change. It actually uplifts you, it raises your energy level. But beyond a point, that same stress which was creative can become distress. That means it has reached a level where people now are spending their energy in fighting anxiety, in fighting fear, in fighting the fatigue. So your energy is not available to you for the act of being innovative, for being creative, for being productive. And therefore, it is very important for leaders to be able to judge when is creative stress moving into the territory of distress. Now, how do you understand that? Well, you have to keep on sort of constantly having a dipstick. You can have employee surveys. I mean, there are all kinds of processes and tools and techniques and apps now available where almost on a real-time basis you can get a sense of what the mood is and whether people are being stressed out, and then how do you handle that stress. There's no one answer. But the first thing, the most important thing is the awareness that stress beyond a point can be a bad thing, and that we have to keep looking out for it and then figure out how to handle that stress. Okay. Now, I don't have any silver bullet, but I can say that just the awareness that we are dealing with people who have hopes, who have fears, who have anxieties, how can we treat them as human beings who, like me, have some common needs? What are the basic needs of any human being? One is to feel connected. Am I connected with the other people around me? The second is a feeling of, am I contributing? Am I being listened to? And the third, am I being recognized for the contribution that I'm making? So if you are aware of that and you build into your culture through the HR levers, the connection, the ability to contribute and learn and to recognize. And you do that through the HR levers, right? And this is what culture is. Culture is the way we behave in our everyday life, especially as we go around taking business decisions. And how do you create culture? You create it through the behavior of people. And how do you create behavior in an organization? Through the HR levers. So that's sort of the technical answer. But ultimately, it is about how leaders behave, how leaders walk the talk. Because people are observing that, right? People are not observing levers, or pillars, or they're not observing process. They are observing the behavior that results from all this. So it's, the manifestation of processes and levers and the culture is in the behavior. And a simple way is, can leaders walk the talk? Can they be what they want others to be?
So in one of your podcasts, and we also, or even students as who are also working here very rare, you mentioned that, we feel sometimes, while we are working on a presentation, let's say, we feel that we are not given the best.
Yeah.
We are not giving, this could be more better, we could have done this, we could have done that. So how you also mentioned that sometimes, you felt that, you are not giving enough.
Yes.
Even though a person like you have led so well and so beautifully,
No.
how did you overcome this feeling?
I still haven't overcome it. But beyond the point, you have to say, all right, I could have done better, but I couldn't. So you sort of accept, and that becomes a little easier as you grow old. The important thing is that one should not be reduced to a nervous wreck because of this worry that I'm not doing enough. You see, so as long as I'm not doing enough is in the creative stress zone, it's a good thing. But the minute I'm not doing enough goes into the distress mode, then it becomes a bad thing. So you will see that any powerful force or energy can be used for good and it can be used for bad. Right? And this is where the wisdom of people and of leaders lie. They are trying to make sure that the force that they are unleashing or the energy that they are unleashing is in the zone that is creating good and is not slipping into a zone where it creates bad, broadly speaking. Yeah.
Recently, I came to same issue when I created one of the video for my channel. That was an animated video. I didn't like it much, so I didn't send it to any of the one in my friends. No, I'll not send this thing because I didn't put much effort to it. I could do that better. But my friends already subscribed it, so they found it and they found it's good, it's very good. But it was my point of view that I didn't like it because I didn't put even a little effort to it. I could do it more.
Yeah. So as I said, it's a very good thing to want to improve.
Right.
But if that worry, am I good enough, becomes destructive and is leading you into nervous breakdown, that is a bad thing.
Yeah.
So you have to find that balance. Huh?
So I also want to share one experience. So I also feel there are 100 things that I do in my lifespan.
Yeah.
But the thing is, okay, what should I start with? This could be also done. This could be also done. Sometimes if I'm giving some inputs, by chance, if my presentation goes well, I get an appreciation. But deep down, I feel I have not put that kind of efforts there. But people are still capping. It feels very good and overwhelming. But deep down, I haven't done something so great.
Well, it's, as I said, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Provided it is not something that makes you lose self-respect.
Right.
Or it makes you lose confidence. Now, there is a very thin line between confidence and arrogance, a thin line between respect and getting depressed. So, I think as long as we are aware that we need to be in the zone, and I'm using that word zone a bit loosely, that we have to be in the zone where we are not creating negative forces. And negative is defined with respect to whatever your purpose may be in life. Then you're okay. But if you feel that there's something that I'm feeling now fatigued, or I'm feeling despondent, or I'm feeling depressed, or I'm feeling indifferent, then I think you need to just sort of observe yourself and ask yourself that maybe I need to change the lens with which I'm viewing myself and what my output is.
So, sir, going forward, there was a very touchy point which I felt in the case study. So, you mentioned these lines. There were tears in the eyes of many directors, and they gave us the green signal to develop this idea. So, what idea you were talking about and how?
About the idea that we were talking about was to create this movement called Rise, which was about driving positive change in the lives of our stakeholders and communities through the businesses that we run. And the tears came into the eyes of the people because of that short film that was made that depicted how we can lift people from sorrow to joy, from suffering to a state where they are being joyful and productive. So the power of the idea through a well-crafted video that was shown. That is what brought tears to the eyes of the directors who were there. And that's what we were referring to. It was something that was very uplifting and inspiring, because when you embark on a journey, you have to feel inspired. You have to feel excited that I'm embarking on this journey, and the purpose of this journey is something that is creating in us the positive energy that we will need to keep us going for a long time, because journeys like this are not 100-meter dashes. They are ongoing marathon races. So you need to have the energy to keep going. And for sure there will be problems. In any movement, if done well in the beginning, there's a lot of positive energy. But then people start having problems, and then the whole energy goes down. Cynicism comes in, and you have to lift it up again. I mean, you have to address the cynicism. You have to correct what is going wrong. But you have to be always aware and be looking for signs that, do we need now to revisit and uplift the whole movement and address whatever the process. It's about a continuous process of, plan, do, check, act. I mean, the good old PDCA cycle which you learn in TQM or TQC. It's about continuous improvement. It's about awareness. It's about intention. It's about working with people. It's about being sensitive to people, about using both the left brain and the right brain, of being a multiplier, knowing how to manage fear and leverage failure. All those things come in. And above all, creating trust in an organization where people trust the leader, and the leader in turn trusts his or her people.
Your leadership is very admirable. So what would you recommend other leaders to, so that they could cultivate a positive culture in any of the organizations?
It's a very difficult question, Radhika. I mean, I don't know what to advise. I think everything starts with an awareness. What am I here for? What is my role? How can I create those conditions under which the people and the resources that are in my organization, we can be at our best towards the achievement of that purpose? So once you have that awareness, then you can start creating the behaviors, the processes, the levers. And what are the HR levers? I mean, it's the performance management system. It's the recruitment process, the induction process, the learning and development, the reward and recognition, and above all, the communication, right? So all these levers must reflect the purpose. It must reflect the culture that we are trying to create. And that is where, the role of the leadership would come in. And I would recommend to the leaders that be clear about your purpose. Always remember that we are dealing with human beings who have sensitivities, who have aspirations, who have hopes, who have the need for connection, who need to feel that they are contributing something and to be recognized for that contribution. So that awareness of the purpose and the awareness that we are dealing with human beings, and it is my job to create the conditions where people can be at their best to achieve that purpose, is what must drive everything that leaders do. That's the uncalled for advice that I would give.
You also told about the 3+5 rule and something.
Yeah, the 3+5 framework.
Yeah. Could you please explain it again?
Right. So really, the 3+5 framework, according to me, my interpretation, is the heart of Rise. So what is three other Rise pillars, which are views of the world. Number 1 says accept no limits. Number 2 says do alternative thinking. And number 3 says, above all, ensure that you are driving positive change. Right? And these 3 in the context of the purpose that we are serving. Now, the 5 refers to the 5 behaviors that will bring these 3 pillars to life spontaneously and seamlessly in the everyday behavior of the organization. And what are these 5? The first one says using the whole mind. The second one says being a multiplier. The third one says knowing how to manage fear and leverage failure. The fourth one says being mindful, and the fifth one says creating trust. Now, if I had the time and if somebody was interested, and I'm sure you're not interested right now, I could decode each of these 5, but that would require some time. But essentially, it is the 3 pillars: accept no limits, do alternative thinking, drive positive. So this must be there in the minds all the time. Am I accepting limits? Am I doing alternative thinking? Am I driving positive change? Right? In the pursuit, of course, of the purpose and the goals. And there are 5 behaviors that help these, given the HR levers already being aligned to the levers, to the pillars rather. And those are the 5 days. So when we say using the whole mind, it means, am I able to combine the so-called left brain of logic, intellect and rationality with the so-called right brain of empathy, connection, intuition, connecting the dots to see the big picture. So you have to use both. You can't use only intellect and you cannot use only emotion. You have to use both, and then you will be able to come up with rich solutions and with the behavior that creates rich solutions. Multiplier of what? Of energy, passion, engagement, creating a sense of ownership. And how do you create a multiplier? How do you multiply? By listening, by respecting people's views, by not being obsessed with the need to show I am the best, I have all the answers, right? But instead, focusing on asking the right questions and then with your cohort, co-creating the answers. Far from wanting to show I am the best, I know everything, multipliers get joy in seeing 1,000 flowers bloom. Okay, that's third one, managing fear and leveraging failure. So innovation is key, alternative thinking. You cannot have innovation unless you take risks. By definition, when you take risks, there will be failure, at least 50% of the time. So what becomes crucial is not that I failed, but what I did after I failed. Did I use the learnings from my failure to create the stepping stones to success, right? So this is the meaning. And the biggest obstacle to risk-taking is fear. So first, the leaders have to enable people to overcome their fear of failure. And then second, when there is failure, which is inevitable at least 50% of the time, can I use the learnings from failure to create the stepping stones to success? So far from punishing ruthlessly failure, using that as my friend and as my guide to create success. And actually, this is linked to the new normal. Okay, so I'm sorry, now I'm deviating a little bit, but everything that I'm saying here actually are the conditions for great leadership in the new normal.
right? And which is VUCA, BANI, and where there is a pushback by stakeholders, and where there's hyper-connectedness, right? So that's the logic. So the third one, as I said, was knowing how to manage fear and leverage fear. The fourth one, I said mindfulness, which really is, can I be open to the possibilities that exist by not being a prisoner of my own past? So once I'm open to possibilities, then I can consciously take a call whether I want to create any of these possibilities into an actuality, right? Which is the starting. So possibilities are the starting point for innovation, right? But if your mind is closed, if we are a prisoner of our own past, then we won't even be aware of possibilities. So it's about not being a prisoner of your own past, and it also therefore logically implies being present, being in the here and now. And finally, trust. So our view is that trust definitely requires some amount of competence, but more than that, it requires authenticity and fairness. And authenticity is, I walk the talk. I say what I think and I do what I say, again and again and again. So that's roughly the C+5 framework.
So, sir, there was a very, as we are, observing the business scenario and the trends which are going on. So recently, we have heard about the L&T chairman made a statement about the 90-hour work week. Our honorable chairman of Infosys, he also made, India should be the top 5 growing economies. So our youth should work 70-hour week. And in the case studies, as Mahindra is all talking about values, how values can drive, let's call it productivity, let's call it quality, and of course, any business organization which comes with a motive of, sustaining wealth, creating wealth, and profit maximization.
Yeah. So, very good question and a very complex question. And I have understood your question essentially revolving around how do you use values.
Yes.
So, if you remember, I said that behavior and performance in any organization is the result of the dance or the interaction between purpose, something called strategy, structure, processes and metrics, and something called culture, which is really values, beliefs, attitudes converted into behavior, right? So values are a very integral part of that ecosystem that is producing performance, right? Now, I have given you a very general answer, but you have to then go a little deeper. What are my values, or what are the values of my organization? And then how do I bring those values to life in the everyday behavior, which happens through the HR levers, right? And I already told you what the HR levers are. So, now going back to 90-hour week or 70-hour week, I don't know whether you heard a very nice video that is circulating in which Anand Mahindra he has said that, the question is about the quality of what we do. So he said that, I won't get into too much of a debate about the number of hours, but I would lay more stress on what is the quality of the work and the output that is coming out. So, it's not an easy question, because after all, you do have to work hard, right? But what does hard mean?
Yes.
And where does, it become too much?
Too much.
And it's difficult. Is it 70 hours? Is it 60 hours? Is it 90 hours? I don't know what the answer is.
So we believe that, going through our, PGDM journey as of now, so sometimes when we get a very exciting project where we are just aligned, it goes with a very smooth flow. We're just doing it, we don't see the watch,
See, this is an excellent point you're making. So it's when people enjoy the work that they're doing, when they feel involved, when they feel they're creating, when they feel that they are contributing, where they are being recognized, you get that energy and that passion that enables you to work more. So you are absolutely right. So it's about creating the conditions where people want to work more, we want to come back. Having said that, you also have to recognize that we have families, we have children, we have wives, we have other things. And if you're only, there was a good old saying, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. Right? I think so. We have to. So as I said, you have to mix and match a lot of things. And there are always competing views and competing demands, and each one. But I personally am a great believer that yes, you have to work hard, but there is a point beyond which the hard work starts becoming unproductive, where creative stress starts becoming distress, and that's a bad thing.
So Anshuman, any on your
Yes,
on the conversation?
it was very insightful conversation we had. It was very fun, knowledgeable, and very interacting session we had with you. So, sir, I would like to ask you one question, and I am sure that you must have heard it many times. So why not once more? So, what is this one? I would use this word Rambad. Rambad advice you would give to us students that we would continue growing in our journey of PGDM and the corporate that is going to come ahead.
So I would say try to discover what your purpose in life is. What is it that you really want to do in life, and be guided by that purpose. And remember that you have to work hard, but there is a limit, as I said, where too much work can become a problem also. So you have to try hard, you have to be connected to your purpose, and you have to always remember that there is vast untapped potential. Each one of us is capable of doing far, far more than we ever thought or we were ever told. So one must remember that about oneself and about the other people that we are working with, and always try to create the conditions where people can be at their best towards achieving the purpose, and remember to drive positive change. Now, I know this is one hell of a lot of things I've said, right? And if you put a gun to my head and said, only tell us one thing, I would say, create the conditions where the people that you're responsible for are at their best in the context of the purpose that we're serving. Okay.
Everyone says that make passion your profession. Recently, I was reading a book, $100 Startup by Chris Gilview. But how to make it? Sometimes passion doesn't give you money that is necessary for survival. So you need to do a professional that is just unrelatable to your passion. So
yeah, so you're right that life doesn't always give us the ideal conditions.
Yes.
So there's always balancing, there's always conflicting things that we have to deal with. And it's about being able to find the right balance in our lives and then trying our best. Really, the final result is not totally in our hands. We have to try our best. But, what is offered to us in life may not always be the ideal conditions. And so we have to keep always balancing and trying to make sure that, we are moving towards what really drives us, what is our purpose. And so, and there will be periods when there will be ups and downs and so on and so forth, but we should keep at it, and we should try and also have fun. It's important to have fun and to enjoy ourselves, because after all, the journey is as important as the destination. Right.
They don't always get what you want, right?
Yeah, but also, you're right. But we often don't know what we want. That is also a problem.
That's very difficult to
find out. The hunt never stops,
Never. The hunt never stops. Learning never stops. And the ups and downs never stop. The coexistence of opposites never stops.
So one very interesting question, it's been often asked.
Yeah.
Let's suppose you were not in your corporate career. So instead you had a choice, and you just follow your heart and passion. What would be something you would have done?
I'll give an answer which will make you hate me.
Okay.
But I think I would have gone into politics.
It's a good thing.
When I was young, my dream was to be the Prime Minister of India. Change the country.
Yes.
So I think that, a good politician can do so much.
Yes.
Now, how do you become a good politician? That's a different question. But I think it requires so many qualities: the qualities of an entrepreneur, the qualities of a guru, the qualities of a warrior, the qualities of a foot soldier. Everything rolled into one to be a good. See, a politician is what? It's like being a leader, isn't it?
Yes.
And only the context is different. It's the same thing. You know, whether you're a leader in a corporation, there's politics, by the way, in every corporation. In fact, whenever there are more than two people, or whenever there's more than one person, there's politics. But I had this dream, and if you ask me, if I was not into the corporate world, what would you to make a difference through politics? I know if anybody watches your video, they'll hate me for giving that
But
answer.
sir, still your purpose remains the same.
Purpose
Make
is the
the-
same. So you know, see one goal and there are a million paths to it. That's from the Upanishads. One truth and a million paths to it.
The destination one, we can take different routes.
Of course. Yeah.
To the destination. Thank you so much.
Not at all.
It was such a pleasure having you and so much learning.
No, I learned a lot from your questions. I was really forced to think on my feet. Thank you for asking very powerful questions.
It came just spontaneously.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. It was pleasure, sir.
Yeah, maybe one of you can ask me a question.
Yeah.
Sir, how are you finding us today?
Oh, you're both looking great, like film stars.
What about me?
You're looking like a film director. Antonioni.
Thank you, sir.
Fellini.
Thank you, sir.